Internet. It's not a pure horror book. It's a different type of thing. It's got a lot of horrible aspects. It's about a female police officer. In the morning she finds out she's pregnant. She's assigned to a case about a child murder that's hit New York City. So while she's examining and going through these dead children that keep piling up, she's starting to figure out, do I really want to bring a child into this world? And the part that I'm going to read, the chapter I'm going to read, is inside the mind of one of the people that she starts investigating. It's not necessarily a happy place to go, but it's it's a necessary component in the stuff that we write. So here we go. Trevor Deacon couldn't take his eyes off of him. He wasn't handsome, at least not classically, but he had that unnameable quality Trevor had always been drawn to, the vibe of a young Montgomery Cliff. Trevor stared at the photo, at the way he leaned against the fence, hands in the pockets of his gray flannel trousers, tie loose, top button undone. His jacket was over his shoulder. It was supposed to look casual, unpracticed, but Trevor knew better. The boy was maybe 10 years old, 11 tops. Trevor stared into the dark eyes, rife with mischief. The boy would be his, like the others, a gift. Trevor used to hunt children through one of the big internet auctions, but that had become boring. Just like injecting vegetables with hypodermics down at the market, it was too easy. No sport, no challenge, no adventure, no fun. The very first time Trevor Deacon had plugged into the collective database of the internet, his world had forever changed. Since then, there had been no break from the voices in his head, no reprieve from the throbbing between his legs. And he had to keep the spider happy, always the spider, or else. And so he had started hunting. That first one had taken a little creative thinking, but not much. He'd stared a little harder, connecting the dots that the mother had been happy enough to supply. The child was wearing a Carlisle Academy shirt. He had tapped into Google and found that Carlisle Academy was on Staten Island. He found a directory of churches in the area, then Google Earthed it one at a time until he found the one that had a distinguished color to it, green, just like in the photograph. From there, it hadn't been difficult to find 1891 Cotler Road, all because of this wonderful thing called the internet. The internet had helped Trevor go from being a lonely, frightened, frustrated man to being a world-class lover. With the advent of cyberspace, thank you very much, Mr. William Gibson, for that wonderful phrase. Trevor no longer had to do with Trevor no longer had to make do with used-up teenagers. Now he got the good ones. When it came to his boys, Trevor was a benevolent God, teaching them true love with the patience they could never have found out in the real world. And like all pure sociopaths, Trevor took this responsibility very seriously. In the old days, he had felt special, as if maybe he was one of the last members of a tribe no one knew about. But now, with the digital world of bits and bytes swirling information around the globe at the speed of light, he had found others out there. Like-minded souls he probably passed every day on the train, and in the aisles of the liquor store he bought his mother her Yukon Jack. But along with its blessings, the internet had also brought about more competition. It was social evolution, and only the smartest would survive. The rest would be carted off to prison. The story on the Times website had recently reported there were 8 million Facebook users under the age of 10. Then YouTube had come along. YouTubers loved uploading videos of cute little kids with the looks he wanted, and it was always easy to find them. All he needed as a starting point was a car license plate or a fridge magnet or a grocery bag in the background. Hell, it was amazing how many people had the local news on the TV in the back of their videos. And nothing helped nail down a region like the local news. Why did people insist on leaving it out there for it? Because they secretly wanted to help. Trevor clicked back to the picture of little Bobby Brown Eyes, and staring into that smiling face made him want him all so much more. But Trevor didn't want to use him up in his mind before he got to use him up in the garage, so he'd have to make do with one of the others. On the way to the garage, he passed the birthday present his soul friend had given him, a photograph. As he walked by, he reached out and brushed the back of his knuckles across it. Then as he went to the basement, he decided on Simon Becker. He paused in front of the garage door, his hands out on the cold steel skin. The only thing he feared in the world lived in there. The door was riveted quarter-inch steel plate, but it was an empty gesture. Nothing could keep the spider in, not if it wanted out. Some nights he'd be alone in his bed, maybe with one of them to keep him company, and he would hear it, the watermelon abdomen popping as it squished under the door, and Trevor would freeze. He had read an article that said spiders hunted by carbon dioxide output, so he held his breath. It would rattle the doorknob until its claws found purchase. Trevor never looked at it, never made contact with its 1.5 million eyes. He would lie still, shaking as it came snuffing over, its hairy legs rasping on the carpet. Then it would crawl into bed with him. One spiny appendage would wrap around him from behind, then another. Pretty soon it would be spooning with him. Trevor would shut his eyes and pray, but it didn't do any good. The spider was just too powerful to wish away. When he woke the next morning, it would be gone, back under the garage door to live in the damp shadows, waiting for him to feed it. In the 56 years Trevor had lived here, he had never seen it in daylight. When he was a boy, he'd asked his mother about it, but she had lied. There was no spider, she said, and the beatings had gotten worse, so he had stopped asking about it. The only thing that kept it away was the screaming. Their screaming. Trevor opened the 2 deadbolts, the padlocks, and the metal crossbar. He swung the door in, waiting for the bloated insect to launch at him from the shadows. But it didn't. Somehow it knew he was working on getting another one, and it would leave him alone. For now. The wire cage bulb overhead did little to illuminate the gloom of the space. He walked over to the big coffin freezer, lifted the lid, and took one out. A perfect little foot. Frozen solid, 5 neat little toes bunched up in what looked like a Babinski reflex, because the boy had still been alive when he had sawed it off. He had a recording of the screams that he would play back sometimes. Simon Becker had an amazing pair of lungs. He had one of Simon's feet put away, and he had kept it in waiting like a fat blue Mr. Freeze for the perfect summer afternoon. An afternoon like today. It was small, cold, beautiful magic in his hand, with 5 little toes. It would help him to forget the one he was working on, until he was here, on the workbench, screaming for him, and for the spider. Trevor sucked the frozen little toes, brittle and hard as china against his teeth, and he wept with happiness. Soon there would be more feet for the freezer. Oh, thank Jesus for the internet. Thank Jesus and Mary and Joseph and God and William Gibson and Montgomery Clift and his mommy and the spider. Thank them all. For the internet and all the little boys, the boys most of all, above everything. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Behind him, the coffin freezer full of little feet sat silent, a larder waiting to be enjoyed. As long as people kept posting photos of their children on the internet, Trevor Deacon would be able to keep the freezer and Trevor Deacon would be able to keep the spider away, and in the process, feed his freezer, and feed it, and feed it, and feed it.